Hi, this is TJ from TJ's Art, and this is my altered paintbrush project. It's super simple to create, and you can decorate it as little or as much as you'd like. Be sure to download the supplies list for this project. A word before we get started. My goal with sharing these projects with you is to get you inspired and on your way to creating. In an effort to keep the videos short, I take a project that usually takes about an hour or more, and then I speed up the video. This way I can pack a lot of information into a small amount of time, getting you on your way to creating. For this project, we'll start by preparing the paintbrush, then cover it with polymer clay. We'll add color, and then lastly we'll add embellishments. If you're ready, let's get started. Let's start with the paintbrush. Place your brush in your oven and bake for 20 minutes at 275. We'll do this to get the moisture out of the wood. This will reduce the chances of the clay cracking later. After the paintbrush has cooled down, sand the surface and wipe clean. Cover the surface with a thin layer of liquid clay or Genesis heat set medium. Then cover with a thin sheet of clay. I'm using Sculpting brand, but any brand will be fine. Keep the hole on the back side open to use it to hang the brush later on. I use the end of a sculpting tool to poke the clay into the hole. An acrylic block can be used to help even out the clay. Smooth with your fingers until the clay is relatively smooth. I like adding this layer so that the next layer adheres nicely. Once you have it smooth, bake for 20 minutes and allow to cool. Next, I'll show you which clays will be used for the little queen and her dress. This is the face mold I'm using. The beige color will be for her face. The brown or raw sienna will be used for her hair, and the fuchsia and yellow will be used for her dress. The mold is by Maureen Carlson. Next, we'll make the hair and face. This is a fun way to use a mold by using more than one color of clay. Condition your brown clay and roll it into a fat little log. Then curve the log to fit the hair area of the mold. I'm using my clay shaper to push the clay off the face area. The clay came out fine, but I'm concerned that the face part may stick into the mold, so I'm pulling the clay out and spritzing the mold with water. Next, take a piece of the beige clay and roll it into a tear shape, pointy at one end. Stick the point into where the nose area is on the mold and press firmly. Use an acrylic block if you need to. You want the back surface to be flat. Gently pull out the face. Wow, right? Trim off the excess clay. Use a piece of cardstock and a pencil to help visualize where you want your items placed. Or if you're like me and just want to go for it, use a pencil to sketch out the dress shape. I know I want the dress to be layered with the yellow underneath the pink. I'm checking to make sure the sketch isn't overlapping where the words of the stamp will be placed. You can also use the cardstock to sketch where you want your dress design based on how large or small your stamp design is. So here I'm just showing you how you could sketch it out, and then you can see if your stamp is going to fit. Here's a variety of stamps that would work with this paintbrush. Okay, now attach the head to the brush. Since her head is slipping around, I'll bake it for 20 minutes at the recommended temperature and allow to cool. Okay, she's baked and will be easier to add to now. Using a bit of beige clay will make her torso area, including her neck, chest, and shoulders. The shape is like this. Add a thin layer of liquid Sculpting or heat set medium and then attach. Use your sculpting tools to gently shape the chest area. The rest of the hair is next. Add a thin layer of Genesis medium to the brush. Then add the brown clay to the hair. Smooth in and vary the shape of the hair so it has a little movement. I'm using the sides of my fingers to indent the clay. Spritz your sculpting tool with water and add lines into the hair. I'm checking to see where I want the crown to sit so that I can avoid that area. Then continue to add lines and texture, smoothing near the baked clay area. I use my tool to help embed the crown into the clay. Bake 20 minutes and allow to cool. Next, using a texture sheet, texture your pink clay. I'm running my pink clay through the pasta machine at a level 3 and then spritzing with water on the middle texture sheet. I run both back through my machine. I'll set it aside for later. Next, roll out your yellow clay to a level 3 thickness. Add a thin layer of Genesis medium on the brush. Add the yellow clay. I'm stopping at the sides. Use your blade or X-Acto knife to cut excess clay. Using my scroll pattern texture sheet, I'll texture the top and bottom areas of the yellow clay. If you flip over your stamp onto the clay, you can quickly measure how much clay you'll need. Spritz with water, press firmly. Add a little Genesis to your brush. Remove excess clay from the edges and attach. Then using your texture stamp, stamp around the edges. It's fun when it's not perfect. Let's go ahead and bake this for 20 minutes and allow to cool. Next, we'll make the top layer of the dress. Using the fuchsia sheet we textured earlier. Using your blade, cut a straight edge along the top. Then using a small round cutter, cut a neck hole out of the top section. Add Genesis medium to the torso, just below the torso, the sides, and a little on the front. Trim the excess clay off the sides. Use scissors if you need to. I notice my sheet is too narrow, so I'm gently stretching it. I want the yellow section to be visible, so I use my X-Acto knife to create an opening. Notice my left finger is holding the clay in place. I start in the center area and only cut the opening on the right side. Then folding over that cut section, I use the clay as a guide to cut the left side. It's easier to flip the piece over and cut. Looking closely at the cuts, I notice some of the words are still covered and the cut was a little wonky, so I'm cleaning that up. Smooth down the edges with your fingers or a sculpting tool. Fill in any areas, then use the texture sheet to stamp and blend it in. Stamp a thin piece of yellow clay and add it for the belt. Bake for about 20 minutes and allow to cool. Before we add the paint, I know there may be some of you out there that may like her just the way she is without any patina. That is perfectly fine. It's your paintbrush. Design it the way that makes you happy. I'm using purple first for the patina, hoping it won't look too brown. Then using a paper towel or an old rag, I'll wipe off the excess paint. You could stop here, but I'm going to keep at it. Next, I'll use a bit of blue paint. Notice that I'm not covering it completely, just adding it to a few areas. I want the paint to go down into the stamped areas better. As that dries, let's finish the area behind her by covering the original clay with a texture. I'm using a cream colored Premo color. I'll run it through the pasta machine with a little water and texture sheet. Cover the handle with Genesis Medium or Liquid Sculpting and cover with your textured clay. Remove the excess clay with an X-Acto knife. Remember to poke the clay into the hole. Smooth the edges with your finger or a sculpting tool. Areas that get squished you can restamp with the texture sheet. Once you've finished this section, bake for 20 minutes and allow to cool. Next, play with a variety of embellishments. You could use tiny fake flowers, ribbon, butterflies, anything that strikes your fancy. I pulled out mini rhinestones, but I like the simplicity of using several of the same color. These are sticky on the back, so I'm cutting them apart and adding them to random areas. If I want to attach these permanently, I would attach them with super glue. I think a little gold paint may look nice, so I squeeze the tiniest bit out onto my finger, then smear it on my glass work surface so I barely have any on my finger. I add the little highlights here and there until I'm happy with how it looks. Next, I'll use a couple of Prismacolor markers to add makeup to her face. Her lips, her eyelids, eyes. Oh, and eyebrows are all the rage. Let's add those too. Okay, she is now complete. I will hang her in my studio. I hope you enjoyed this project. Feel free to share your project on our Facebook group. I look forward to seeing what you create. Thanks for watching.